Hi, I'm Caitlin Burns, and I'm here to tell you a little story about myself today. I was a weird kid. In retrospect, I really wasn't all that weird, but I felt hugely, hugely odd. None of the things that I loved or naturally was inclined to do made sense to the kids around me. I just didn't understand it, and they didn't understand me, and they never let me forget it. It was really hard. I was in a small place, and the world seemed amazingly small. And when I was really young, I couldn't imagine a world with me in it. I didn't imagine that there was a world where I had a place, and it almost killed me. On the positive side, though, I had a voice. I had parents. They were amazing, and they helped me to understand that I was valuable, that all of the weird things that I was doing and all of that would pay off someday. And having known me for maybe 2 minutes, all of you can probably tell that I enjoy performing a little bit. They encouraged me to pursue that as a hobby because I was a big academic nerd, and I loved science, and I loved being a good student, but I also loved theater. And my parents took me from my very small school and made sure that I had access to a place where I could learn how to create, and I could share the arts, and I could do stuff that I loved. And so I went, and it kept going, and I kept doing it throughout my school years, and it was a lot of fun, and I met people who liked the same things I did, and that was really cool. I still didn't quite understand how to speak to them. I started doing performative things instead of actually really speaking to someone really. And it took a while. I had to get the knack of talking to other people my age. And when it came time for, well, what do you do? College oh, no, I'm sorry. I did make a couple friends, and we would talk, and we would be able to share things, but it was still very few. I got seriously nervous in social situations, and it was only with a script or with a project that I could connect to someone and get something done. When it came time to look at universities, I was committed to hard science. I was going into the really lucrative world of geology because I wanted to be a paleontologist. Dinosaurs are still awesome. But to me, going and becoming a research scientist, spending all of my days scraping dirt off of fossils seemed like a much more likely financial success story than finding a career doing what I loved in the arts. Luckily for me, I had voices who were able to talk to me about their passions and about what they found amazingly engaging. My mother, who was a researcher in urban geography, told me about how she went to school for art history, and she painted, and she studied great artists, and all of that built into something that she could do as a career that also gave back to the world. My father, who was an architect, told me about doing theatrical productions himself in college. My scariest, most intimidating uncle, who was a lawyer, talked to me about how much fun he had had in college studying real-time Southeast Asian dramas. It was something that I never expected. It was something I never imagined about the people around me. And it led me to make one bet. I applied to several schools for geology, hard science, something that was a sure bet, and one school for art. And I got in. It made all of the difference because someone outside of my very small world imagined that I had something to give theirs. Now, once I got to New York, I suddenly discovered that my story was not terribly unique. I seemed like an odd kid to myself, but I met dozens and dozens of odd kids who loved the same things I did and who loved them in a way that I'd only seen other people connect over. And I could have real conversations, and I could make really interesting pieces of art with them. I learned that I was less interested in the idea of performing and more interested in what I could do creating with other people. I went wild, and we explored theater, and I suddenly realized that that canvas could be much bigger. With the help of friends who I'd finally made, we created street parades where hundreds of odd kids could get together and explore the city and change it in some way for an evening. We took an old piano factory and reimagined this space over and over again from a mundane warehouse into Wonderland. We explored, we brought together different groups of artists and different creative collaborators to take over spaces for a single night, as many as a dozen or more crews who would come together and share a space with one thematic idea. We would explore unusual parts of the city, and we would fill spaces under bridges with arts and music and creative people who were sharing, and just prayed the police wouldn't find it first. And these street parades became huge endeavors with casts of thousands, and it was wonderful. Who would have imagined that we could fill Union Square with people who were having a pillow fight? It was silly, it was odd, it was weird, and it was wonderful because it all sparked from a very silly, very delightful idea for its own sake. The best part of these for me was always the morning. After we'd spent all night building something new, something that we would never see again, we would be able to sit and we would talk about ideas and we would be exhausted. But we were thinking about what we couldn't do here, but what we hoped the world could be. What are the changes, what are the ideas that we can imagine for the future? And this was beautiful. It was honest. It was authentic connection, and it was something that I've been looking for my entire life. My longtime partner in art and events, and now my husband, helped me to find pathways into places I never imagined I'd be. He helped me find my day job, which is Transmedia Producer. I work in movies and games and films, and I play in huge story worlds, imagining how you can tell those stories in new ways and different platforms and extend them for years. And suddenly, while I was really spending a lot of time working on scripts and game documents and all of that, I looked up and the party had gone everywhere. The friends who I had sat around and chatted with, who I'd imagined with, had taken the ideas we created and in their own ways made amazing and wholly new things from them. The creative community that I got to experience includes doctors. It includes people who are doing technological innovation for medicine. They're engineers, they're entrepreneurs, and that story is not unique either. The world over, these creative communities are taking advantage of the ideas that they've built through play, through shared imagination, and bringing people together, say, in Times Square. This was an Occupy protest about corporate personhood. Very serious political ideas, but finding a way to bring people together that is celebrating the fact that there are people who share these ideas and share the idea that they can be changed. That same set, the network that was at that party, has made amazing steps towards new civic infrastructures, distributed networks in the wake of Hurricane Sandy that are feeding tens of thousands of people per day, that have been able to bring millions of dollars worth of aid to networks on the ground without a major infrastructure, without a major corporate or hierarchical institution behind it. And it's not just New York. You can find creative communities everywhere, whether it's Bogota or Sao Paulo. What you really need to do is be able to have places where you can share this, where there's a safe place to imagine together. In Sao Paulo and here in Bogota as well, there's been a willingness to allow art to exist, a willingness to have space where creative communities can build these ideas. You can find it in Russia, you can find it in Qatar. It's what makes us want to get up in the morning, the idea that we can find something that really makes us passionate. And when you do something like that and find someone who loves it across the world, it's amazing. Hip-hop artists in North Africa from different countries found similar ideas in one another's music because they could find one another online. These ideas were shared by many, many people who weren't hip-hop artists, but who were able to come together because they knew suddenly that across the world there were enough people who shared the same hurt, the same idea, and the same imagination of a better world that they did. In the Amazon, in Manaus, south of here, research scientists are partnering with entertainment companies so that they can not only show the work that they're doing, but share their imagination and share what they know about the horizons that are unexplored, that unless you go there, unless you see it, and unless you see the wealth of creativity that goes into science and the sheer unrestrained mystery you would never know is still on Earth. Governments and institutions, cities, when they want to build new ideas, they make art centers. You can find these across the world, and they're the new frontier in entrepreneurism and in being able to speak internationally between countries in commerce and in mutual education. If you look in Malaysia, if you look in Bogota, if you look in New York, Los Angeles, Moscow, London, everywhere, you will see the connection between media, entertainment, creativity, and imagination that is building the ideas we haven't made real yet. Together, creative communities are building in their imagination a world that has a place for all of us. I didn't imagine it was possible until I had someone to share with me their own passions and their own imagination. I was really lucky. I had a voice in my dark times and in the times when my world seemed extremely closed. And my favorite thing now is to work on projects and to explore new ideas with people who are looking for that voice, with people who maybe haven't had it before, and who can seek and can find things in the world and share an imagination that we haven't heard before. And ultimately, even if you don't think you have the idea that's going to be the next huge technological innovation, or the best story you've ever seen on film, or the thing that's going to change the way we look at politics or law or civic engagement in the world around, you can be that voice. You can be the person who listens and can support someone who's going to be able to find a way to change the world for the better. Thank you.